yesterday, and if so, thank you again. And if not, I'm going to give you a brief presentation of the Blended Learning Webinar Week. You know that this is the second day, the second session. And when we thought about the structure of this webinar, we thought about introducing the topic with two great speakers. Yesterday we took in notes, looking deeper into blended learning. And in this second session, we thought about having the opportunity to listen to good practices in blended learning in different universities in different countries of Europe. So as you can see, well, we are going to have 4 different examples, good examples of the uses of blended learning. And tomorrow we are going to have a final panel discussion, I think a very interesting one, with talking about the present and future of blended learning with Steve Wheeler again, Antonio Moreira Teixeira from Universidade Aberta de Portugal, and Stefan Polmans de Leuven in Belgium. So I'm going to introduce our first speaker today. Is Luis Fernandez. He's from my university, from UNED, but he's the director of one of our local centers. UNED has more than 62 local centers in the country and also abroad. And I think it's a quite interesting model. And the only thing is we are trying to move towards a new role of our local centers. And Luis is the director of the local center in Tudela, a very active and quite important and relevant center in UNED. Is going to present the kind of model we are thinking about. And this local center has been awarded a lot of times because of the quality it has. And in fact, Luis is chairman of the quality committee of local centers of UNED. So Luis told me he wanted to present with a video, first pre-record the video, but he's also here to give them the opportunity to ask him questions and answering them. So let's see if we can start with Luis' presentation with this video.
Firstly, I want to thank to Maria Ángeles Sánchez Elvira for her invitation to this webinar focused on the blended model of Associated Center of the National University of Distance Education in Spain. We are witnessing a recalibration for the role of physical process management in an increasingly digital world. We can see that Amazon began to open physical premises. MOOC courses seek local meeting places for participants. Classic online business bank like ING Direct have started to deploy a network of physical offices, and on the other hand, on-site banks like Santander develop more and more computer tools and close branches. Universities, not just open ones, are not exempt from the similar problems. The continuous need for recalibration of the pedagogical, methodological, and digital proposal is evident. The success of UNED since 1972 can be due to some classic factors of open universities, but it has also been cemented in other factors as its blended learning model with a large physical territorial structure. We've got 61 local centers and 120 classrooms within the Spanish state, besides 13 centers in different countries of the world, mainly in Europe, North and South America and Africa. We've got a crisis of the blended model. Traditional face-to-face tutoring is progressively decreasing due to the current support that all our students receive by online means. In this sense, our blended learning model requires to be updating according to the evolution and development of society itself, and the availability of advanced learning methodologies supported by technologies, for example, artificial intelligence. Local centers are argued thus to develop new academic services, giving answer to the demands and challenges of higher education in the 21st century. In an incipient study of the social return of investment developed by the Quality Chair Ciudad de Tudela, note that only 3 types of services are offered in all of the 61 associated centers: administrative services, regulated teaching, and library. Other services, such as the UNED Senior, Orientation and Employment Center, the accomplishment of long-life learning activities, more than 5 per year, or summer courses which have a mixed academic and informative nature, are offered only in half of the centers. However, few centers have specialized and differentiated services. For example, technology centers, chairs, institutional or center-based research, or transference. I will explain some possibilities for our recalibration of the role of UNED local centers in a blended model, raised from proposal already developed successfully throughout good practice in the center I manage in Tudela, and from proposals linked to the future strategic plan of UNED. They are focused on lifelong learning possibilities, such as higher support to entrepreneurship, employment, specialization, research and transference, and other contributions such as local support to open and online programs under a local approach, taking advantage of our privileged connection with the immediate environment. As for the regulated academics, we can see that at the beginning of the economic crisis in 2007, there was a correlative increase between enrollment and unemployment, and the same correlation occurs when in 2013 unemployment decreases, as can be seen in the graph. We have verified that an increase in the offer of degrees does not increase the total number of students. It only diversifies the enrollment, so that, far from solving the problem, worsens it. Tutors who depend academically on departments and faculties and economically on the associated centers are limited to providing the formal aspects in academic activity and proofreading of continuous assessment, with an impact than less than 20% of the students' final grade. And they work 3 hours per week. If it decreases, we must think about the adaptation and redistribution of their functions, as for example, increase the weight percentage of the evaluative role to, for example, up to 40%, achievement and control of the implementation of quality curricular and extracurricular practices with local control that could be enhanced with the help of tutors. And on the other hand, increase in its role in long life learning activities, employability and entrepreneurship of students. Regarding the long life learning, because of the special funding of the associated centers, it's important to have a good social impregnation, developing cultural activities, long life learning courses, exhibitions in quantity and quality, since they are the best expression of this impregnation for its media and social repercussion. For this, we will use tutors in collaboration with departments and faculties of the central headquarters and with organizations in the area, coordinated by the management of the centers. Throughout the years, we'll make the system feedback as it can be seen in the non-regulated students database that increases year after year. This is directly related to the enrollment growth. We can see that although enrollment of face-to-face students in light blue has been maintained since 2009, online enrollment and attendance have progressed considerably, and therefore the global one. And finally, in the last graph, we can see the evolution of something that seems really important, that the system has economic sustainability. In the third graph, you can see the annual profit. In this graph, we can see the annual profit. Well, in lifelong training, we think it's important to give an answer to the needs of professional, personal, philosophy, spirituality, history, or social updating. Maintaining a balance between courses with a strong scientific character and courses of dissemination. For example, Rafael Moneo, Pritzker Architecture Award in front of well-known journalists of the country. In another vein, as the loan of physical books is also decreasing in library, we think it's important to modify the library activity towards digital on the one hand, and towards dissemination and long life learning on the other hand. An example is a contest that we can see the winner. And finally, we understand that flexibility is a fundamental factor. The rigid programs have good enrollment coverage in large areas, but not in small ones. In Tudela, a small town of 40,000 inhabitants, the rigid one has just 6 students developed by another university called UPNA, and the flexibility one called Sapientia has got 150 students for more than 10 years. It's essential to improve the connection with the environment. For this, we measure 3 indicators that can be seen in the graphs: the interrelationship with entities in the area, the number of the annual activities, and the number of agreements signed, and the connection with social network users. We also give a lot of strategic value to the organization of cultural activities such exhibitions, theater, concerts, and others that we denominate call activities. As an example, activities we can watch the making of TV or radio programs at the national level, or for example, the exhibition in our center of the Soccer World Cup, which attracted everyone fond of such sport, a very large and very varied group of people. In some cases, they knew our centers for the first time and could even consider enrolling in some type of studies. We call, as I told, call activities. Although administrative procedures are increasingly automated, we believe that it's important to maintain face-to-face administrative services, administrative support for enrollment, application for scholarships, exams, and above all, the service of electronic administration like registration or certificates, etc. We think it's important to develop the role of guidance, information and employment center. The face-to-face intervention will provide a series of nuances that are not given by the virtual. The genesis, coordination and evaluation of extracurricular practices from the associated centers with the support of tutors and the help in employability and entrepreneurship to our graduates, will achieve a greater territorial efficiency, which improves the current coordination from Madrid. The assignment of specialization to the associated centers could give an added meaning to their work and make them reference in it. As good practice, we will present two other examples of specialization developed in the center I manage, Tudela, the Chair of Quality and the Technological Center of Software Design. The Chair of Quality works in innovation, in management and certification for the university itself in collaboration with the National Agency for Quality in the Universities, that is part of INQUA, for the regional government of Navarra, for the City Council of Tudela, and for the Associated Center itself. It's financed by the referred entities, and in order to maintain its level of excellence, it has been presented to several awards. As you can see, we won the Ibero-American Gold Quality Award in 2017. And the Technology Center develops software with great growth, as can be seen in the graphic on the right, serving 600,000 users and more than 300 centers, winning the International World Edu Award in 2010. And the particular distribution of many of the associated centers placed in the second city of the region, or in the first one that lacks of other university centers throughout the Spanish territory, means that we can think about making local research that universities interested in big cities are not interested in. End-of-career projects or research work in the doctorate will be taken off an active role by tutors, and involvement to local companies would considerably strengthen the territorial role of the center. Logically, if we are able to take the research and specialized services located in the area of influence, it will be easier to make a transfer of it, including to the nervous society, as part of the social responsibility of our university. Also, as a good practice in Tudela Center, we can highlight that there are 4 large clients that are using our developments, generating economic return to the university. To emphasize that one of the programs has won the Accessit, the prize to the National Prize of Innovation in the Management. All these can facilitate the retention of talent in the areas of influence. This UNED model can contribute to keep it distributed throughout the national territory, especially if we link it to specialized research or transfer services. This will be the way for us to maintain our intellectual capital as a university center, and can be seen in the corresponding indicator. Well, that's all. Thank you very much. And thank you again to María Ángeles Sánchez Elvira for inviting me.
Thank you very much, Luis. I think you can have all of you this view of the power of local in progressively more online modalities, such as our own ones in UNED. We are the largest university in our country. We have moved towards a full online model, but it's still our local centers are or can have very relevant and new roles in the 21st century, And I think this is a very good model, and well, it's the way we are working on. So Luis, I think, is here. I don't know if you can appear with your video and with your voice. If there is any question, comment, or suggestion, because we all know that we are moving toward different models, and in many of them, local centers are disappearing, and that's not our case. We want to promote this local anchor, as well, Luis has explained. Well, Tudela is up north in Spain, and we are working very close. The site center of the university is working very much with Tudela Center, for instance, in developments and sort of things. So I think it's a quite interesting model of how local support can be still very relevant tool for open and online distance education. So if you have any comment or question or suggestion or experience about this topic, please go on in the chat, and Luis will answer. Hello, Luis. I cannot hear you. Okay, anyway, okay. Well, we cannot hear you now, but well, it seems there are no participation in the chat. However, anything you might want to know about this model and the things that Luis has presented, you just can write to him or write to me, and we will send you more information about how our Tudela is working and how our local support centers are working now, and well, the model we are working on. So although Luis will be here, I mean, during all the sessions, so if finally we have other things we can talk about, we will be all here. So he will be also until the end if you can, and we can move towards our next speaker. Thank you, Luis. Well, our next speaker is Raúl Santiago from Spain too, from University of La Rioja. And his presentation is on this topic, active learning and blended and flipped models. He's an expert in flipped learning, and he's associate professor of the University of La Rioja. But he's been working a lot during years in the model of flipped teaching. So that's why I asked him to participate in, because this is a model that it suits very well with the blended learning model. So Raúl, whenever you want, I'm going to move towards your presentation. This is here, and the floor is yours.
Hi. Hello, Angeles. Thank you very much for your invitation. Also to the rest of the organization of this blended learning webinar week. First of all, I have to say that in my curricula there was a missing point, which was I was a tutor, a professor in the center of Tudela that Luis was presenting. In fact, he was my boss. So the only thing I have to say that that center is really an example, not only for other centers in the distance education in Spain, but also for face-to-face universities. So the only thing I have to say is that I've been working there for 12 years. It was great. It was a complete learning experience for me. And I think that the only thing I can say is congratulations to Luis and to his team. That it's really good to work there. So I'm working now in a face-to-face university in the University of La Rioja, as you mentioned, Angeles. And I'm a teacher. I'm a professor of future teachers, also in infantile and primary schools, and also in secondary schools. And I use both blended learning and flipped learning model that sometimes are confusing. And that's why the first thing I'm going to do is just explain a little bit about this model, flipped learning. I don't know if participants know about this. but I'm going to explain the difference between what is blended and what is flipped, in order to have this learning space very well defined. And then what I want to do is just to construct a very practical session in which I'm going to show you some tools that probably you use, participants use. They are in the daily working of many teachers all over the world. But for me, I think they are sometimes underused, and that's why I want to show which are the features, what are the characteristics of these tools, and where and how can they be used also in blended learning spaces and in flipped learning spaces. So I have made a selection of 6. I can give you another link in which a group of teachers, we have made a selection of 200, all kind of tools for all kind of aims. But in this case, I'm going to talk about evaluation assessment tools, which are probably the most important. And here again, I don't know why I was mute. Okay, so as I was saying, flipped learning and blended learning are of use in the same meaning. And let's see what's the difference between them and how flipped learning works. In this picture, you can see the above part of the slide, how works the traditional model in which teachers teach something. I mean, this can be for face-to-face or for virtual learning environments. Teachers explain something. According to Robert Marzano, a researcher in the United States of America, 65% of teachers all over the world think that the main feature in class should be explaining things, which I think that probably all of us can understand that this is a mistake. It's all over the world. And knowledge is not only in the mind of the brain of the teacher, is in many places. So we have to start by analyzing where is the knowledge and how can be this shared and distributed to students. Okay, when the teacher explains, some kind of understanding can be produced. If we are in a 100 student class, like I do during the year, probably you know that 60% are physically but not mentally, and the other 30-40% probably they are during the 8 first minutes, but then they are in other virtual worlds, especially if you let them have mobile devices in the classroom, which is my case. Okay, then what we do with them, it will be the third icon here in the presentation, will be that they do something practical in order to improve their understanding. And then we could say that this is the group space. So 120, 30, or whatever the number you want. If it is a virtual space, can be 500. And then we have individual space. It's represented by that red icon, in which we made them some homework to consolidate the learning. Here in Spain, probably in other countries, there is a big debate about, especially with small kids, if homework is necessary, if homework is should be obligatory in the curriculum. So this is how the traditional model works in a very simple way. And then we can see how the flip model works. It's flipped because we change, as you can see there, the ways in which those things happen. What we call the individual space is now first. So what we want students is to access to some kind of knowledge. Can be through videos, can be through text, can be through podcasts, can be through infographics, any kind of tool, any kind of resource that you consider that they can help him or her to acquire a first grade of knowledge. We will explain this a little bit after. We call this the LOTS, low order thinking skills. So we don't want them to acquire a complete practical grade of knowledge, but just that he or she reminds, understands, or analyzes a particular process. Can be biology, mathematics, foreign language, whatever you want. And then we can expect some kind of understanding. Here we have the tools. We have what we call learning analytics. Here the teacher should analyze what's happening, who in the classroom has access to this material, what happened with that knowledge, which of the questions were, understood by the participants, by the students, which other were not, what happened. And then according with all this information, we cannot call this big data. This is different. This is just, we consider this small data. Those kind of information that specifically those learning tools, those assessment tools that I'll show you in a minute, give us. And then according to this information, what happens? That teacher can change what it occurs in the group space. Students should have acquired, these low-order thinking skills or low-order cognitive knowledge in the individual space, and then we can do something different in the group space, something different than explanations. So we can work in projects, we can work in projects, we can work in peer instruction, mastery learning, Socratic seminars, narrative, first-person narrative, Genius Hour, any kind of strategy that can help students to put in practice what they understood in that individual space. Of course, this is the perfect moment in which a teacher will help students to solve the doubts, to analyze what kind of misunderstanding happened, and in short, to take the best from that wonderful moment in which students are together with the teacher in a classroom. And I think this is the mistake of some universities, where the explanation again is the main and probably the unique teaching experience in the classroom. That's why what we use flipped learning, we say we have to convert, we have to transform what we call the teaching learning, the teaching centers into learning centers. They are supposed to be teaching, but as they are learning, this is something that many universities should be thinking about. And that's very simple. It's easy, as you can see. Okay, in this other picture, you can see, according to Bloom's taxonomy, not the original Bloom's taxonomy, but the updated Bloom's taxonomy, where are the students in these different parts? We could say that what we want them to work in the individual space through their mobiles, through their laptops, or wherever you want, is remember, understand, and no more. That's what we want from them, to access to this first part of the content. That's why we need them to apply, analyze, evaluate, and create, which will be the highest high-order thinking skill that we want to produce with them. And that's why teachers are important, why teachers are necessary, and it's not a question of teaching tools, teaching digital tools. It's a question of human learning, which is the most important one. Okay, so if we understood what is the blended learning, we can understand now what is the flipped learning model. Sorry, what is the blended learning? We could see that everything that is flipped is blended, but not blended is flipped. What does this mean? That in both models, we're talking about virtual and face-to-face spaces. But the difference is that there is no connection between the individual and in the group space in the blended model. This is not bad. This is good, because since many teachers can think that students doing different things in the virtual space can acquire the necessary level of knowledge that they need for something. So in the blended learning model, there is not a connection between the individual and the group space, but it is in the flipped learning. If it is not connection, this is blended. If there is connection, it's flipped. That's why when we create materials for the flipped learning model, we want them to have this connection. So we are explaining photosynthesis in a video, for example. We are saying, okay, this video will allow you to remind or understand what is photosynthesis, and that's why when you acquire all this knowledge, we are going to do a practical thing in the lab, in the school, or in the university. So that's the difference. Blended is not connection. In the flipped learning, there is a strong connection between both spaces. Both are perfect models if we do them well, but we have to have clear what is one and the other. In fact, I've seen many teachers that they are doing blended learning and they think they are doing flipped learning, which I insist is not bad. I think it's good, but this is a different thing. In fact, when you create a material, a blended video, for example, you are not going to do the same than a flip video. Especially because in a flip video, you want the students not only to watch the video, but also to interact with the content of the video. We use many tools to interact through questions. So that's why we say that one of the main things that a teacher that flips should be the art of questioning, the art of inquiring. You have seen this, and now you should be able to answer to this. And of course, this has the effect in the class. So this is the difference. Very easy to understand. Both are very good models, and we could see that flip will be, if you want, a variation of the blended model. I would say that both of them, they are not methodology that many people call. They are not didactic methodologies. They are models, they are approaches. Since then, in the classroom, in the group space, or in the virtual space, you can do different things through projects or the other strategies I mentioned before. Okay, so we are here. We are now analyzing the group, and then we should think about the importance of assessment, of evaluation, both in the individual and the group space. And this is what I'm going to do now. So why? Because the students need to know what they already know and what they have to achieve. This is an important thing. So I see that in the university, one of the problems in the students is that they don't know what they don't know, or they don't know what they have to learn. So in these models, it is very important the self-regulation of learning. And of course, teachers have to know where students are. That's why one of the most important things when we use both flip and blended learning models are assessment, initial assessment, and of course, formative assessment. We want them to read or to watch or to interact with the content, but we want to know what happened. So I never start a lesson without having analyze what the students know. It can be in the virtual space or in the group space, but I have to do it. Since, I don't know, this is probably very Spanish. We see that sometimes teachers in Spain, we are like garlic, you know, that are repeating the same things the same way all the days. And this is not our job. So first, what do students know about this? And now what can you do? Because perhaps they know many more things than you expected, or they are, you know, 3 steps behind, and you have to solve this before. Okay, that's why I am going to show you now one of the most important tools. I mentioned 200 in a Google, in a mind map that we created 2 years ago, and I made a very short selection of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tools. Probably you know many of them, but as I said before, probably you don't use them. I mean, with the total amount of features that these tools have. So I have selected Google Forms. I have selected Microsoft Forms. I selected Kahoot, which is probably the most known and the most popular, and everybody uses Kahoot because it's this funny and it's excited, and students, okay? And then Socrative, Quizzes, and Edpuzzle. So what I made is a short analysis in which I have add these features, this rubric. For example, number of answers in the multiple choice questions, if you can add multimedia or not. If you can change the weighting of the value of the questions and the answers, the quality of feedback. This is especially important if you believe in feedback. Versatility. I mean, if you can use it with many tools and many hardware, different software. How can you share with these with students? And then if you should use this and the best in the individual and in the group space. Analytics. As I mentioned before, between the individual space and the group space, teachers should analyze what's happening, what's going on, in order to know where are the main problems, where are the misunderstandings, and then if they incorporate what they call gamification, that you probably know very well. So having all this in mind, as you can see, for example, Google Forms, I use Google Forms in the individual space, as you can see here, individual space. You can add a number limited of questions. You can use multimedia, which is, as you can see here, the best tool for including multimedia, since you can use video, you can use images, but not only in the questions, but also in the answers. You can change the weight of the questions. The quality of feedback is not one of the best features. Versatility is normal. In some cases, I've detected that doesn't work with some type of specific tablets, in iPad specifically. How do you can share through a URL or through mail or in the embed code? Okay, then it gives you root analysis, and it doesn't incorporate gamification automatically. Of course, you can gamify what is happening. We could say that Microsoft Forms is just a copy of this tool, but it has some things which are not so good in the sense of, for example, you cannot incorporate multimedia in the questions, but you can use a QR code, which is good for some specific things. Then Kahoot, which is, as I can say, one of the most used, is very funny, it's very excited. We can say that we can use 4 answers in the multimedia questions, only multimedia in the question, not in the answer. You cannot change the weighting questions. The quality of feedback is poor in the sense that it's not automatized. You have to do it personally in Classroom. It's not very good. I mean, it's good, but not so. You use a pin, probably you know if you use it. And is, more used in the group space. You can use it individually, you can use it in group, since a new feature that started about 1 year ago. It has something which is called heat maps, I will show you in a minute, and you can use gamification. So specifically for the group space. We could say that Socrative is something different, but you can use more questions. The quality of feedback is also very poor. The versatility is very good because you have versions for iOS, for Android, for website, for students, for teachers, for everything. And these features are free. All of them are free, but this incorporates a lot of things that others don't do. You use it a classroom name, and then the students, the only thing that they have to do is put the classroom name, and then you can launch the assessment or whatever you want. Especially good for the group space, and they give you heat maps. It incorporates a version which is a space race in which you can do gamification. Quizzes is one of the most I like. Probably is not as good as known as Kahoot. Number of answers is unlimited. Multimedia in the question and the answer. It has also weighting questions. Quality of feedback is poor. In all of them is poor, and that's why, as you can see here, that's why you use it in the group space, more individual space. The versatility normal is use a pin like in Kahoot. Also, you can see heat maps when you finish the activity, and gamification is also incorporated. Probably is one of the funniest gamification into that scene. And another tool that they use a lot, and it's very good, is Edpuzzle. And Edpuzzle is something different than this, because you use all these 5 tools after watching the video or during watching the video, but Edpuzzle, what gives you the opportunity is to include the questions through the video. So what you have is a video, imagine 6-7 minutes video, and then it stops and then asks a question, you answer another question, and has some features like, for example, that you have to rewatch if you answer incorrectly, and so on. So this is a great tool. I recommend you. It's free, and you can use your own videos that you created, or videos that you can find on internet. So it's very, very good. It's some things that are not so good, as for example the versatility, or also the heat maps. And the heat maps, it also give you information about where the students stopped, where the students had more problems, and then analyzing this, you know where students have troubles, where students were success. So this is basically what I wanted to show you. Let's see an example of the heat map of Socrative. And again, the importance of asking good questions, the art of questions, as I said before. Look at this. The 3-4 questions here on the left, you have the students, and here you have the questions. If they are green, they are good. If they are red, they are bad. But I made here factual questions, and the second column were conceptual questions, and the third were procedimental questions, and then again concept questions. So if you share and you make very good questions, what you have here is a heat map of the students' knowledge. So they know, in this case, they know the factual things, as you can see. They have no problems acquiring data information in general, but when you try to connect this and convert it to conceptual knowledge, they have problems. Here and here, they have the main problems. You also can analyze what are the students who didn't have problems, or where are the students who have more problems. So I think this is one of the roles, as Luis said before, of teachers in this century. They don't have to start classroom explaining things. What they have to do is just analyzing what's going on through the access of students to this new media, and then see what happened. This is another example of Kahoot that probably you know. This is a comparison between 2 years. This is fantastic since year after year, I have data since 2013, and I can see, okay, what happened this year that they made this great, but in the third question they made a lot of mistakes. Where is my error? Where is my mistake? What happened with this group of 100 students? And that's all. Okay. In short, teachers should keep in mind that what kind of knowledge they expect to generate in their students. Depending on the cognitive dimension and level to be achieved, the technology offers very useful tools to enhance this previous work, flip or in the distinction between the virtual space and the face-to-face space, which is what we call the blended model. For the end, that may be selection of 6 tools that are normally used by teachers, but at the same time, very often underused. I said before, teachers use Kahoot for fun, but there is a lot, of labels, a lot of things that you can do more with Kahoot, with Socrative, with Puzzle, with quizzes, with Google Forms, or with Microsoft Forms. And that's the end of my presentation. I hope you enjoyed this, and I think if you need more, you just can contact with me, and I can give you the link to the 200 tools if you want to have a nice summer analyzing all of them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Raul. If you have a link, just a right link, we can just put it on the chat. And,
okay, right.
Okay. So if there is any question, any comment, any suggestion to the model that Raul has presented us with this intriguing difference between blended and flipped, I think it's quite interesting. And if you have any comment or suggestion,
yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
You have the link there.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Well, I would ask you, in your experience, how do students feel about that, about the flipped learning? I mean, do they feel comfortable with? They have to be trained for? They reach, I think, maybe better performance or higher levels of satisfaction with this more active way of learning?
Yeah, I think that's the question, Angeles. That's the main question. How students feel? I mean, you have to be, salesman here. You have to sell them. So the first day is the most important one, since you ask them, do you want to do the same you do, normally in class, which is copying things, note taking of a PowerPoint that this teacher is presenting, or do you want to do, further ahead? And that's what I sell them. And I say, okay, if you do this, it's more work. Of course, it's more work for you, but this is, the weekly work you have to do. I estimate about 1 hour of work out of the class, watching the videos, doing the forms, preparing things to explode the classroom. I have to tell you that 90%, 95% of my students come to my class, but it's not compulsory. So that's great as success. And what they say at the end is, yes, it was harder. It was, not very hard, but it was harder. It was better. I perform better. Qualifications, marks are better. And of course, I think that the knowledge I acquired learning was deeper, was better, and will be better in the future. So, because sometimes attending an explanation in the class can be a waste of time, and you know very well this. So they feel well, but at the same time, you see, this is not just watching videos. This is, much more than this. If you do it, it will be good for you, will be good for me, and will be good for the group. That's the summary of their opinions, I think.
All right, and it's the way of engaging the students in their learning process. So thank you very much again, Raul. You will be with us, I think, during the next 2 sessions, if you can.
I think I told you I am traveling in half an hour.
I know.
Okay, so I will try to be there. But anyway, thank you again for invitation, and I hope that this presentation was useful and interesting for participants.
Thank you very much, Raul.
Bye-bye.
And now we are moving because time is running. And so now our next speaker will be Elif Topak and Mehmet Firat from Anadolu University in Turkey. I think it's also a good very interesting experience because maybe you all know that it's one of the largest university in the whole world with distance education. So the uses of blended learning and why diversity matters, how they are focused on that and in giving support to students in such a large university. Well, is the main topic of two speakers. I think Elif is with us today this afternoon. And well, she's associate professor at the Open Education Faculty in Anadolu. And well, Mehmet Firet is member also of the Empower project of my group in the student support area. And he is also associate professor at Anadolu University. So Elif, I know you're there. I will show your presentation here. And as soon as you can start presenting. Okay, so hi. Oh, so are you?
Hello.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice to
How
see
are
you.
you?
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.